That took a lot. Wow, okay.
Whoa.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Joyce,
And I'm Tomek Gil.
and we're the husband-wife duo of 3F Living, an interior design and architecture company here in the city. We help our clients from initial design to move-in day. And on today's episode, we're talking about our design process through photorealistic renderings. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about our design process through photorealistic renderings. We're obviously designing our apartment, and so this is as if Tomek is the client. We've now talked about our millwork design style. We know what we like and what we don't like. We kind of went through that whole Q&A on the last episode. We also went through our design style and also laid out the floor plan. So at this point, with any client, we would be taking ideas and things that we have talked about through our questionnaires and our templates that we've reviewed with our clients. And we have a little bit of creative liberty at this point. Not that we don't show options, we certainly do. But once we've gotten to this point, we take all the information we've gathered from the client and then through our conversations, through our design development phases, and we present the client with photorealistic renderings. With the photorealistic renderings, because Tomek does everything in 3D, we're able to send our models to our renderer, and I can literally pick out everything down to the knob, the actual physical knob, and it will be completely rendered in a realistic way. We even have recently on Instagram, we've been able to show the photorealistic rendering to the completed project, and it's incredible to see that, don't you think? I think that really has helped.
Yeah, I feel like it's like taking the design iterations to the next step.
Yeah.
It's like you're finally settled in with your design, with the space layout throughout the apartment, and now it's time to really apply the finishes, get a good sense of where the tile's going to go exactly, where the mirrors are going to go, lighting,
Yeah,
etc.
because like we've already gone to the tile store, we've already picked out the tiles, and
Yeah.
we're like, okay, we want to put this in the entry, we want to put this on the floor, we want to do all these different things, and so all those materials have already been established. So the cool thing is that we can send them to our renderer, and he can take those physical objects, model them with the same exact color iterations and colorways, and put them in our designs. And a lot of times, for this one particular client, we picked out this green tile, and they just wanted to do an accent tile in their bathroom, right? Just like in the back wall or just in the shower, because it was a dominant color, and the way that we were doing it was like a vertical soldier stack. And so I had said to the client, I said, let's not stop there. Let's take it around the entire bathroom. And they were like, whoa, our bathroom's too small. I don't really know. But these photorealistic renderings has allowed us to push the envelope, to get our clients out of their comfort zone, to really show what's going on in our brains in a photorealistic way, which is so cool. And they went for it. Once they saw the renderings, they were like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And
right, because green is kind of a bold color. It's hard for people to imagine it
in a smaller
everywhere.
space.
So unless you present them with an image that kind of like really speaks to like what it's going to kind of look like as a whole, I feel like a lot of people would be hard pressed to say yes. I would have. Even though I love
I was
green,
like, just take this and just put it around the entire bathroom. You're like, my bathroom's not that, like, why? Why would you
can be
do
a
this?
lot. But it turned out great, and it worked like a charm.
They are so happy. And the cool thing is that I didn't show them like a million options for like vanities or medicine cabinets. I didn't do like, let's look at these three. I presented the rendering, and in the rendering they said, oh, I love that medicine cabinet and it fits perfect. We didn't have to go through the options. the decision was made. But then there were other parts in the rendering that I had rendered, and I was like, I wanted different sconces. And the client was able to say like, listen, I love everything, but I don't like those sconces. Let's just trade those out. And it was fine. And we could take those out, give them to the renderer when we found those options. And that's how we went through the options through that process.
The more decisions we can make, and the more we can kind of nail down the design before we construct anything, the smoother the process is.
So, from the tile episode that we've released, we also have kind of re-gone through the tile process, and some of the tiles and concepts that we originally discussed on earlier episodes, we've adjusted and modified as we've gone through our design process. One thing that when we went back to the tile store, Tomek really loved the idea of coming in and just having like river rock, right? On the tile floor, like on a floor in the entry.
And our initial selection had something similar to that. So our initial selection was kind of like a starting point. We didn't completely depart from all of those initial picks, but we kind of evolved them a little bit based on what's available on the market now, and just what works better with, as our design and our thinking about the project has evolved. We wanted to kind of like, we needed to catch up some of the early decisions that we made. So that's this is what this is. It's kind of a version 2.0 of the original selections.
So great, because the first tile was basically like exploded river rock, like large format, but it was flat. Like it did not have, it wasn't a tactile experience. Like it was a flat slab, matte, like straightforward. You've seen it a million times. So when we went back to the tile store, I was like, Tomek, I was like, you know, the tile store got all these like new products. I think we should just go back there, especially because usually, and this happens with clients too sometimes, is that we'll pick something early on and then it takes like 4 months to like go through all these things, and then like new things are on the market. And if we want to replace them, we can, or if not, we don't. But one of them was our entry tile. So this is the river rock that we looked at and that we decided on, that we really loved. One thing that we had talked about was that we really wanted to do tile on the walls in our entry. We always wanted to do that. We never really landed 100% on a tile, but when we went back to the tile store this last time, we found a tile that we really loved, and it worked very well with the river rock. So this tile here is almost like a limestone, but it has like ribs in it, very thin ribbing into it, and both Tomek and I loved it. And it comes in these like really large format tiles, which we love that idea of not having a lot of, you know, lines.
Yeah, we want it to be natural, so we don't want to break it up with lines throughout. So the large format tiles give us a nice feel of this pattern. That will work really well, I think, with the stone on the floors.
Like the first approach is really calming, and like very serene, it's meant to I'm home.
And the tactile nature of the floor tile kind of sends those messages through the touch. So I think that it is kind of like kind of trying to address all of your senses at once as you walk through the apartment or into the apartment first.
Yeah, and I love that idea. And just to kind of bring it back to our design style.
And the ribs too.
I know, and the ribs on the wall. Exactly, I know. He's just gonna come home and just like touch the walls and like just calm himself down. No, but like, going back to our design style, which is very interesting to me, all roads lead back there, because we decided on Scandinavian, a little bit of Scandinavian. We decided on a glam moment and transitional, like a transitional style. So I think that when you walk in, you get this very like spa-like kind of moment, which is very like a Scandinavian raw materials, soothing colors, clean lines, and things like that. So I think that this really encaptures that essence. So.
What I'm gonna say?
No, I just like. Okay.
This is
so again, this is the first. He hasn't seen it. So in the entry, because we don't have a gigantic space, okay, but it is efficient and it's proper for us. And so going along with this kind of Scandinavian raw materials, a little Adobe in there, like an Arizona spa moment when you first walk in. And at one point I said to Tomek, I said, oh, I want to do the canisters in the kitchen. And he's like, no, we can't do that because it'll take away from like the Luke Lampco pendant, which I 100% agreed with him actually. But I was like, you know what if I find the right one that goes along with the raw materials and we do them in such like an artistic kind of cool way on the ceiling that it would feel more like a foyer, you know, like a little moment without having to do like a chandelier and all the things. I thought that like this could be a very cool thing. Hold on, wait, but you can't comment yet because like I would tell any client, you have to see it all the way through.
All right, let's see it all the way through.
And also, I should say that this is kind of in concrete. This is glazed in concrete, so it really goes well with, if you can see it, it goes very well with like the river rock and also what's going on the walls. All right, ready?
Yes.
With further ado. Okay, entry. So here we have the river rock. We have the floating kind of, the floating millwork. So when people come in, they can kind of throw their shoes underneath here with a nice little light. It's an easy space since it's not a huge, it's not a large kind of foyer that we need to create storage, but it needs to be done in a very thoughtful way where we can kind of like throw the shoes under here. And then in going through that, Tomek had designed this kind of like curved piece of millwork that would then kind of like pop open and there would be storage in here. So it's like a hidden storage moment. The other thing that I did when I was looking at it was that I wanted to really represent the texture of the river rock. And I wanted to bring that into the millwork. And so in doing that, I found this kind of wicker. It's almost like a wicker, which we found these chairs that also had wicker on it that we really liked. And again, this is like a constant theme that we want to kind of carry through our apartment. And so in doing a whole kind of moment like that, I used them on the panels in the millwork, just on the upper portion. In going through with the more transitional design aspect, I used kind of like a quarter round molding that would just simply be applied to like more of a modern kind of shaker, which is what we had here. Again, I was thinking this could be shoe storage. And then looking at this section of it, this is from where we did this like curve from where the tile and the wood floor meet. And it actually represents like this curve when it comes in this way is now curving back into the kitchen area, which I think looks really nice. We would want to have that kind of cove that's here, and these are the little canisters that we could like put in different places on the ceiling. This also is that bronze mirror that we had talked about that could be like embedded, like recessed into the tile, so it could just kind of sit back there. And then the door, I didn't know, I know we had talked about initially putting wood paneling over the door to kind of hide it, but we can't do that. So I thought, why don't we just embrace it with the black and just have the black and have the black hardware on there, and those are just like moments of contrast. Again, we have a small space, so we're really kind of leaning into the textures of neutral colors, and we're also going to allow the colors to come through in our belongings. So it would be artwork, it would be furniture, it would be all the other things that are in the space, but everything else is just kind of like a neutral palette, which is very similar to what we did in our last apartment as well, and it worked out very, very well.
I like the canisters. I think they're cool. I think we can potentially cluster them kind of more central in that area.
I love that idea. That's like a really great idea to kind of bring it together and have more of like a chandelier. That's great. I think that's really cool.
Right, like kind of like 3 levels or something.
Yeah.
Like.
Okay.
I like the floating idea, but I would definitely bring this quarter round cabinet down to the ground.
Okay.
I think that it just kind of needs to just sit a little bit.
Land. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. What about the wicker? What do you think about that in the moldings? Just your initial thoughts.
I think there's a lot of moldings there. I think if we could simplify this a little bit, I like the wicker. Maybe what we could do is just carry it down.
Okay.
That way the whole thing has a little bit more modern feel, but also
Yeah.
kind of bringing that wicker into the space.
I love it.
I like the breathability of that cabinet. I think there's, there are going to be coats and stuff in there. I think it might be a little congested sometimes, so having air kind of free flowing through that cabinet is actually a very positive thing.
Great.
I like the cove. The mirror, we can maybe talk about it, like upsizing it a little bit, or giving it some kind of a border, even if it was like a traditional half round, like kind of tile that goes around it. It will go along with.
Well, actually, I think that this tile has a quarter bead.
Okay.
That you can actually, like an edging, that we could use as like a molding, like around that, and then put the mirror, the bronze mirror inside that, which could be really cool.
Okay.
I'm fine making that
way,
whole wall,
kind of mimicking what we would do with the wicker. And we can also kind of stop the mirror along
that same
with
height,
that
and
level.
like here and here.
Yeah,
Okay.
just so it kind of like looks like it just turns the corner.
I like that. That's a good idea. So then moving into the kitchen. The reason why I went with two neutrals on the upper and lower cabinets as the same color is to really allow the stone in the back to pop. That's where I was thinking the accent would be best, to have it all the way in the back corner, and that's where you have this accent tile, as opposed to having this slab and accent right in our living space, like on the dining room table. It would just be a little busy. And I also think that like with the Luke Lampco above it, just like a subtle look is a better one. I liked the contrasting black mat with it, as well as bringing those ribs from the wall tile in the entry into small parts of our apartment. So I know we talked about the end cap of the kitchen, obviously missing the filler panels, and that was a rendering issue, but having the ribbing in glass with like a backlit encased in a black mat is something that we were talking about here to kind of end the kitchen portion going into the living room. Also, just having like the nice rib just on the top is like a detail. Not anything more than that. Everything else would be like a 1/2 inch shaker of some kind, or a 1/4 inch shaker. I was also looking at different floating glass shelves. This is in gold, but it could certainly be in black to continue with more of that modern look and feel like you talked about. And let me just go to a few other images. You can see the round here on how that was kind of terminated. This is looking at the dining area, again with like the Caesar stone raw concrete countertop that just has like a nice neutral. It would blend in nicely with almost any stone that we get. So here is it looking as if you were sitting in our living room. This is what you would see. And I think that in this image it's very telling that it's nice to have just the accent on an isolated area, because everything else is just going to become way too busy in our space. So initial thoughts on the kitchen. Things that you like.
I'd like to maybe find different application here. I'm not 100% in the wainscoting.
Okay.
I see the symmetry, although this space itself is kind of more of a circulation space, so I don't mind it being different from what's happening on the side. Just because it's going to create a separate zone. This light, let's talk about that. Maybe I was kind of thinking more of like an art light, just because like if you have a cove like that, it's really just going to illuminate top of the frame of whatever's hanging on that wall. So if we can offset something and have more.
Or maybe these would be more directional.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking like, if this light can somehow get incorporated into one of these shelves, maybe at the top, kind of just creating like a halo up there, then we wouldn't have to recess it, and then we could kind of balance that with something protruding off of this wall, so that we have kind of like a shelf there, something on level, and then the light in the middle just kind of droops and drips in between the two light sources on either side.
One thing that I didn't note, but I did add just to look at it, right? is to add just like a little bit of ribbing here. It does create that contrast between the two cabinets, and it just kind of carries this over, and then it carries this over. I don't really know like if we like or don't like it, but it's something that I had added.
Personally, I imagine this to be kind of more of this shaker, like flat look, because the ribbing is vertical, and I kind of like thought, you know, lots of ribbing here, and then you kind of just carry that band across, and then land on that glass cabinet that's got ribs. So it's kind of like leading your eye through the space.
That's fair. So we can make this flat and this
just to have like a little, just modernize it a little bit.
I also I had him put in like a light filtering thing, a film on the glass here to make it operable. And then having like a breathe wall kind of system in a way that has like all your herbs and stuff on the sides, because then you can easily put things and utilize that shelf as you're cooking and not be like around all of these like mini little plants and pots and things. So we did do toe kick lighting that we added in. What did you think about that?
I like it.
Okay.
That's good.
And then I was taking, I think that it's nice that you have the same stone just on this like little island that we created. So it would be on the sides and then water falling into the back, and then transitioning to a single quartz solid slab stone right there. Again, I think that it's just nice. It just has like a nice neutral, it's calming, there's isolated accents. But do you agree on the placement of the accent of the stone?
I could be convinced. I mean, like, my thought was the reverse of having the busy stone in a smaller space and having more neutral kind of surround, which is why I thought the busy stone was going to go on the tabletop and then have kind of a calmer like space around it. You kind of flipped it on me, so it would have to kind of, I would have to get used to the idea. I'm not completely opposed to it, though I think this stone is very contrasty in this image, and I think the colors are just a little bit off for me.
So too harsh?
Yeah.
Too harsh?
Okay. Too harsh, and also they kind of blend a lot. So I would like to kind of just maybe look at the colors a little bit more. The stone on the top. So the table is something that I feel like we might have to have like a separate episode just on this table, because I keep going back and forth like with, I like the stone on the tabletop because I think that it will just kind of provide a hardy surface within that kitchen area that wouldn't get easily damaged.
Yeah.
Although having like this kind of what I call a plinth of like a countertop gives you a chance to kind of maybe have something a little bit softer, like a wooden table or something that could just kind of pull up to it, you know?
Yeah. Again, details of like those things. It's just like color placement, really.
Okay.
And like understanding, okay, you like the idea of black matte hardware. You like the idea of uniform top and bottom paint, not contrast.
No,
not white oak.
I'm okay
so like
with that.
that's the most important part of this. It's like, okay, like, do we do a 1/4 inch or do we do a 1/2 inch? Fine, we're gonna figure that out. But at least we know what to ask for samples of, right? At least I know that like you like the concept of neutral, but maybe you want it a little bit lighter. No problem. So we create a few samples, but now we know what we're doing, right? We know that we are looking for an accent tile or an accent slab that's going to go on the back wall. We know that we're going to do a neutral for the tabletop, whether it's quartz, neutral, or whether it's a wood, you know, of that kind of contrast. Now we know we have more of a direction, where before we had a bunch of ideas, but then seeing it visually in the space, it's not going to be 100% perfect. We're going to make adjustments, and that's the point of this, is that we're going to make adjustments, which is part of the process. This is the exciting part of the process. So that concludes the end of our next episode. Usually after we go through this design process, we'll go back to the drawing board and do some replacements and kind of encompass all this information into a bid set. So on the next episode, we're going to talk about how do you bid with contractors, what does that look like. The contractors are going to get these renderings along with like an actual bid set that tells the exact material, so they know that they're installing, you know, large format slabs, or they know where the marble's going versus where the quartzite's going, or quartz. So all those things are important. And it's also important for the mill worker to see this so that he can start producing samples of like, what does that drawer with the beading look like? So that's the next phase, and I'm sure we'll do an episode on it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. I hope you enjoyed kind of seeing into our process, and I hope it was informative. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.